Hello again. We're going to take a look at Chapter 5 in this video, and we're focusing on lipids, specifically phospholipids and steroids. So lipids are a type of biological molecule that we see that are molecules that have little or no affinity for water. They are not polymers. They can be structurally diverse. We've looked at fats already. In this video, we'll look at phospholipids and steroids. Phospholipids, we'll think about their structure. Then we'll think about what it means when we say that they have amphipathic properties. And finally, we'll look at their functions. So, the structure of a phospholipid, yikes. Here it sits. It's kind of complicated, but not that bad. Notice that a phospholipid has a glycerol molecule, just like fats did. This one's kind of turned on its side there. Attached to the glycerol molecule are two fatty acid tails. This one happens to have a cis double bond in it, okay, so it's an unsaturated fatty acid tail. And then attached to the third carbon of this glycerol molecule is a head. The head of the phospholipid is composed of a phosphate group. There's one of our functional groups attached to some other molecule. This one happens to be choline, but that can change. So what we've got with a phospholipid is a head and a tail. And we tend to draw a phospholipid kind of like a really bad drawing of a person with no arms, a head and two legs. And the phospholipid is kind of unique. It's a lipid, so it's hydrophobic, but it has amphipathic properties. What that means is it's partially hydrophobic and partially hydrophilic. It's a little bit like amphibian. That word amphibian refers to things like frogs that live part of their lives in the water and part of their lives out of the water. So phospholipids are amphipathic. Part of them is hydrophobic. Which part? Yeah, these fatty acid tails are hydrophobic. They're made up of hydrocarbon bonds, and those are all nonpolar. The head of a phospholipid, drawn by the circle part, right? That's hydrophilic. How do I know? Well, for one thing, I see a negative charge right there. Anything with a charge on it is going to attract water and be hydrophilic. So phospholipids have amphipathic properties because they have a hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tails. Where do we find them? What do? Their main job is to be a part of biological membranes that are found around cells and in cells around organelles like the nucleus and the Golgi and the endoplasmic reticulum, etc. They compose what are called a phospholipid bilayer, and that's what makes up the bulk of a membrane. Notice how they're organized. The head of the phospholipid is sticking out, and the tails are all kind of clustered together. The hydrophobic tails sort of sit in the middle here, and the heads are hydrophilic, and they're kind of hanging out near the watery outside of the cell and the watery inside of the cell. The membrane's main job is to be selectively permeable, allowing some things to pass through but not others. This phospholipid membrane helps with selectivity. Some things can easily pass through that phospholipid membrane, but some things can't pass through well at all with this hydrophobic barrier in the middle. A lot of molecules can't pass through that. So the membrane can become selectively permeable. So phospholipids' primary job is as parts of biological membranes. Does anybody know where phospholipids are made? Where in the cell? Yeah, that's Chapter 6 material. But phospholipids are made in the endoplasmic reticulum. So we'll take a look at that later. Steroids are a third type of lipid. And again, molecules that have little or no affinity for water. Again, we're going to have to ask that question later. What does a steroid look like? Nothing like a fat. Doesn't look like a phospholipid either. Steroids are composed of carbon skeletons consisting of 4 fused rings and then functional groups attached to them. We saw several steroids in one of our earlier chapters. We saw estradiol and testosterone. There are lots of different kinds of steroids doing all sorts of things in our bodies, but I wanted to show you one particular steroid, and that's cholesterol. Here's a picture of cholesterol. It's got the 4 fused carbon rings, and then attached to it are some molecular groups. Cholesterol is given a pretty bad rap, but there are real functions of cholesterol in our bodies. Let me give you a few of those functions here. I'm just reading them so that I can remember all of their functions. So cholesterol can be used as, it's found in membranes, in animals, so it's important in biological membranes. It's a precursor. So this molecule can be used to make other molecules. So it's a precursor for steroid hormones like estradiol and testosterone. It's a precursor for vitamin D, so it can be used to make vitamin D. Vitamin D is important for bone health, right? It's a precursor for a whole bunch of other steroid hormones that are involved in water balance, for example. It's, an important component of the myelin sheath, which surrounds our nervous cells in our spinal cord. It's a precursor for bile salts. Bile salts are made in the gallbladder and made in the liver and stored in the gallbladder and help break things down. Got a phone ringing here, but I'm going to let that go for now, okay? So, cholesterol is pretty important. We can make our own cholesterol. In fact, if we eat a lot of saturated fats, we make a lot of cholesterol. We can also eat cholesterol, so we can take it in our diet and we can make it. But cholesterol, making too much cholesterol is problematic. And maybe you've heard about, cholesterol only in conversations that are like, boy, that sucks, that cholesterol stinks, right? You might have even heard about good and bad cholesterol. And it turns out that good and bad cholesterol are simply carried differently in the body. There are different kinds of cholesterol. If you get your cholesterol test done, your doctor will tell you the results of your HDL and your LDL. Your HDL is like the angel cholesterol, and your LDL is like the devil, according to this picture at least, right? So what's going on? Cholesterol has to be carried through the bloodstream. It's hydrophobic, remember. And so it has to be carried in what are called lipoproteins. A lipoprotein is kind of a ball of fats with phospholipids, actually, heads of phospholipids and tails sticking inward. And then in this ball are proteins and cholesterol as well, okay? And there are different kinds of lipoproteins, high density and low density lipoproteins. Cholesterol is carried in both of them. High density lipoproteins tend to take cholesterol, so they're roaming around in the blood. They pick up cholesterol and carry it to the liver, where the liver can digest it or can convert it into something else. Low density lipoproteins tend to carry cholesterol into the arteries and drop it along the arteries. Low density lipoproteins are considered the bad cholesterol because they deposit cholesterol on the artery walls. That can lead to real problems. You can get blockages, plaques building up that can lead to an increased risk of stroke, heart attack, those kinds of things. And so your doctor will make sure that you're eating the right foods and having the right kind of lifestyle that increases your HDLs but decreases your LDLs. Eating foods that are rich in saturated fats, eating a diet of lots and lots of meat, can lead to, red meats in particular, can lead to too much LDL cholesterol. And that's why we have to be careful with our diets. Okay. All right. That's the end of the lipids. We'll move into proteins in our next video.